A Christian scholar yesterday cleared some of the smoke that surrounds the Muslim theory of life, politics, and control of the world. We have in the Bible and the Koran two conflicting systems and their law authority. The law authority for Christians is the library of the Bible, and the law authority for Muslims, of which there are about 1.5 billion in the world, is the Quran and two other books in a trilogy, the comprised also of the Sirah, which is the biography of Muhammad the Prophet, a businessman, militarist, adventurer, adulterer, fornicator, and a man who had many wives, some of whom were his slaves, including Mary, the white Christian woman whom he admired greatly, who bore him at least one son as a slave. And this system, that biography is the Sirah, and it is their interpretations from the Muslim scholars for the past 1,000 years. The system is 1,400 years old, and these interpretations and commentaries are in the Hadith, which means just commentary. So you have three pillars of Islam, which are the source, and this system is the law for the Muslim. The Muslim lives this way and governs this way, and the Christian lives, in theory at least, by the word of God, which he is to understand applies not just to his soul individually, but to all of society. Christianity is a civilization creating a mechanism of revelation from God to man through the power of the Holy Spirit, according to biblical teachings, and all that based on the person of the Lord Jesus Christ, his birth, death on the cross, his sacrificial life for sinners, and his resurrection. So in heaven, which is a place where there are spiritual beings, God not having a body as we do, there is the Lord Jesus Christ, the man, according to the scriptures, who stands there at the right hand of God in his person, in his flesh, the flesh in which he lived his life here on the earth. So you have a total system in which Jesus Christ is the central figure in Christianity, and on the other side, we have that system defended by Shabir Ali, the cleric from Toronto, who, with his great beard and his marvelous accent from the Middle East, spoke to an overflow crowd at Durthick Hall last night. Now, tonight at 6:30 is part two. Part one is the question, is the Quran a book of peace? And part two tonight at 6:30 until about 9 is the answer to the dispute over the answer on the question of, is the Bible a book of peace? Now, there'll be, of course, a great misunderstanding of the Bible and the righteous genocide that God say imposed upon the Amalekites and upon others by the hand of Joshua and others in the scriptures, the great notables. Joshua, of course, after the death of Moses, had the obligation after the 40 years of wandering in the desert to conquer the land that God promised to his people, right? The descendants of the tribes of Abraham, the 12 tribes who had gone through a slavery, much like that being directed today by the Federal Reserve System. But in other words, make bricks without straw, that kind of thing. Work without pay, that's kind of what we have today. But we're very happy. We're very happy to be here, as many of the Israelites dreamt of their former happiness when they were out in the desert, saying, "Where are the leeks and the garlics of Egypt? Where is the water? Where are the periods of rest that we got from our slave masters? We want to go back." Well, we're in that contented stage here in our country, and the system in the scripture of eliminating God's enemies was to be total. There was, in fact, what we call now, thanks to the United Nations and its enhanced vocabulary, we call genocide. And God's people were to destroy to the last man, to the last woman, to the last child, female and male, the Amalekites. And there was judgment upon God's people because they didn't do what they were told. And even Saul was told by the prophet Samuel, why do I hear the bleating of sheep? Why do I hear the lowing of cows? You were to have destroyed all of the enemy, every last one. and not leave the monarch alive, and keep the best of the sheep and the cattle and the gold. And and that was because God, the God of the Scriptures, is wrathful. He is wrathful against sin, and He determined to use His people to judge the wicked, of whom there were many examples, many tribes who were to be destroyed. Now, with the coming of the new dispensation, the fresh dispensation of the Son of God in the person of the Lord Jesus Christ, there was a change of operation. There was a replacement. And this term is used, of course, as a pejorative by Baptists and our Baptist ministers and others in the Chattanooga area. The idea of replacement of the church, or of the nation of Israel, by the church. But in fact, that is what happened. Israel was destroyed in 70 AD by the Roman emperor, and Trajan, I think, is the name of the general. And the people were destroyed. Practicing Israelites who had not converted and fled were destroyed to a man. There were about 1 million of them who lost their lives from the Romans. And so that people was extinguished in history. And there are no more. There is no more Israel. There are no more Israelites. There is no priesthood of the old covenant. It does not exist. It cannot be reconstituted. And there are just remnants of the Pharisaical class of the time of Jesus, who we call them Jews. And then there are others who became Jews from the kingdom of Khazaria back in the 900s. That's another story, kind of outside the scope of our review here. But modern Jews come from the Khazarians. That was an empire that went down the middle between Islam and Christianity, and converted to Judaism. The whole people did. They were a Far Eastern people, and that's a story that's not necessarily part of the conventional history of the Jews, such as that told by Paul Johnson. Which, by the way, very very good book, Paul Johnson's History of the Jews. A terrific study of that people, which I highly recommend to you. My name is David Tulis, and we are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio, the station in which you report and the world decides. So what about the Bible as a book of peace? Well, it is, because even though God's people in the former times were ordered to destroy to a man, to a female child, the wicked, they were told to destroy them all without mercy. Jericho, an example of that. Everyone was to lose his life, but the only one who survived was the whore, right? The whore and her family, who saved the spies, including Caleb, and the spies who spied out the land from the advancing Israelites. So how is it that we have a book of peace? And I would say that David Wood, the very able defender of the Scriptures and a very able reader of the Koran, will have the upper hand tonight. As I would say, in terms of debate, he had the upper hand against Dr. Shabir Ali from Toronto last night at UTC. That's tonight. And I urge you, my listeners, to take part in this. There was an overflow crowd, so you're going to have to avoid the stern gaze of the fire marshal and get in early to get a seat. There were people on the steps last night. They probably could have sat in seats. I saw a few scattered empty ones, which should have been filled, but were not. And there will be a great crowd this evening. And it is a matter of importance. I think you, my listener, need to attend this event. Among the sponsors is a man named David Brandon, I believe his name is, who's a local venture capitalist and businessman, and also the well-noted and affable Bassam Issa, who is they might say the friendly face of Mohammedanism here in Chattanooga. He is the developer. You see his name sometimes on billboards as credit-fueled developments go up in the Chattanooga area. That is his work, and he is the other sponsor. And UTC, of course, the sponsor as well. My name, again, as I said, is David Tulis, and I do thank you for giving me just a couple of minutes of your time. We have a great deal to get to. There's smoke from Shabir Ali, and kind of caviling, you might say, backbiting, sort of, against the very astute, very well-read comments of the New York Christian professor David Wood. And David Wood, of course, is now on the defensive tonight, as he was on the offensive last night. Is the Bible a book of peace? And the answer to get, I don't think I said what the answer is. The answer is that, yes, the Bible is a book of peace because it teaches the idea of God's sovereign grace that saves the sinner. And the system of redemption, the scheme of redemption in Christianity is completely contradictory to the works righteousness of the Muslim. Islam is a religion, a man-made system of exteriority. What I mean by that is it focuses on the outward form. It does not care about the inner man. It does not care about the heart and the soul and the inner life. And yet Christianity does. Now, Christianity, at least in the United States, has gone too far, perhaps, in considering and excluding other things, considering the inner life of the soul, the pious life of the individual. It has, thanks to premillennial dispensationalism, a kind of privatization of the faith that started back in the 1780s in Christendom, a kind of softening of Christianity, a softening and a making of it a negative concept. It has rendered Christianity somewhat less powerful and somewhat less influential in Chattanooga than it could be, and than it should be. And again, that's because it has privatized Christianity in thinking that Christianity focuses only on the individual. Just listen to Christian radio for an hour, WMBW, WDYN, and other Christian programs. It's almost always about the internal struggle of the individual. There's ever, except for Janet Parshall, who has a show on the Christian radio channel here called In the Marketplace, except for her, Christianity seems largely to be just a private matter between the soul and God. And it's not. And so Christianity is a system that is all about grace. It's all about redemption. It's all about God's goodness. And it's full of positive, wonderful, self-denying, gracious claims upon the man. The Ten Commandments are, of course, negatives. Well, many of them are framed in the negative. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not steal, for example. Those two commandments have many positive duties attached to the negative, right? There's the negative, but they imply, though they're framed there in the shorthand, they imply an ample list of positive things that the adherent of Christianity, the Christian person, is supposed to do. And in the end, those virtues and obedience to the negatives all add up. They all add up to equity, what we call equity. And equity does not envision many of the things that we find so astounding in faithful, routine, ordinary Muslim practice. I wish I gave myself more than 2 hours a day to talk with you about some of these things, but here we are. We are on the David Tulis Show. That's my name, David Tulis. We're here for a couple hours every morning, and in the afternoon, I'm a salesman. Just, by the way, if you want to advertise on our station, make sure you contact me. The name is David Tulis, and best way to reach me is shoot me a quick email with your phone number through the website, which is our chief sponsor here, and that's Nooganomics.com, Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. Now, Christianity does not have anything to do with slavery. Slavery is allowed in Christianity, right? Slavery is not something that Christianity prohibits. Absolutely not at all. Slavery, in fact, is part of the human condition. And yet slavery is regulated. God's people cannot rigorously treat their slaves. There is a 7-year servitude limit on any Christian who submits himself to be enslaved by another to pay his debts or to make good. It can't go beyond 7 years, and there's a rule for the man who lends to give back his the collateral of the poor man's cloak at night. Again, suggesting that God always cares about the poor and the weak, the incapable, right? The people who cannot capitalize very well because of their own limits. And so there is to be mercy shown upon them. But slavery is allowed. It is allowed. And the pagan, the Christianity allows for the enslavement of the pagan. Why? To allow him to be reformed by his servitude to the Christian man. The Christian man has now influence over him, has control over the ungodly, and works toward his reformation. Now, slavery in Islam is quite different. It's quite different. And we see the whole, you might say, reprehensible. Let's just say that there are people in that audience last night who, when they heard of And then when they were reminded of for example, the parts of Islam which are the most bold, right, which would be sexual slavery. I'm reading. I subscribe to the Gatestone Institute out of Great Britain, and there's the claim that sexual slavery has nothing to do with Islam, and yet it really does. The immigrants who come are very aggressive sexually. I saw a quote from an immigrant in one of the camps, and he said his organs were getting blue because he couldn't get enough sex in the camp in one of the European countries. And a few months ago, a report found that between 1997 and 2013, at least 1,400 non-Muslim British children were gang raped and brutalized by Muslims in one town, Rotherham, Great Britain. Children as young as 11 are often gang raped, abducted, trafficked to other cities in England, beaten, and intimidated, according to the report. Authorities did nothing for fear of being thought of as racist. Well, the whole slavery, rape is part of the slave culture. There was a quote that I read last night. I was doing a little reading in some downtime, and there was a man who, at Muhammad's time, said to him that he just didn't think he could take part in the next battle because when the jihadis won, he was very prone to temptation, and he thought he would just kind of lose control of himself when the women were gathered and then, of course, raped. Rape is part of the booty of the jihadi warrior. Now, David Wood talks about how the Muslims, when they are minority, they're all about tolerance and peace. When they're gaining ascendancy in the 20%, they are all about demanding their rights and constantly being offended and aggrieved by the majority. That's happening all through Europe right now. And finally, in stage 3, when they have control of the organs of power, when they control the state, they control the ministries of justice and the police, etc., the surveillance apparatus, then the war really begins against the dhimmis, the people who were kind of the dhimmis. You are a dhimmi in Muslim culture. You are just tolerated until finally you are forced to convert or forced into a decapitating tax system, which takes half of your income every year, or you are destroyed. That's the third class. The third class, and that status rises in the second phase, and of course in the third phase of Islamic domination. The Muslims are about 1% of the population, just about down there where the gays are. The gays claim to have about one. They claim to have 10%, but they are perhaps well less than 1% numerically. And the whole idea of slavery, of course, is against local economy. We've got to understand that local economy is based on the free market. And I do want to mention that if you are concerned about prospering here, and you have the idea that the national markets are where you need to prosper, make sure you contact Patrick Neal. Patrick Neal is a financial advisor with Edward Jones, and his office is next to the Target behind the Cahutta Bank building, the Cahutta Banking Company building on Highway 153. Edward Jones, Patrick Neal is the financial advisor's name, and you need to contact him for your investment advice, mutual funds, bonds, annuities, stocks, and the like. Edward Jones has a very, very advanced group that tailors the portfolios that it advises for investors at any stage of their investing career. 870-7894, 870-7894. That's Patrick Neal. Also, we're brought to you by Superior Air Systems. It got kind of warm in the hall last night at UTC, but the heat was of a different kind. But if you have ordinary heat problems on a warm day, Superior will take care of you. And if you're cold on a cold day, well, he'll fix your system as well in the big orange vans. That's Superior Air Systems with Bill Keith in the big orange vans. Now, also, we are very much for local economy and the free markets, and there's a great local economy concept that Carrie Friesen, Dr. Carrie Friesen, and others are following, and that is getting out of the insurance model of the sick care model of medicine. And Danielle Mitchell is attacking that system and has abandoned it with zest and gusto. Danielle Mitchell, contact her at Chattanooga Sports Institute. That's the Chattanooga Sports Institute, to find out what she's got to offer. It's a relationship with a doctor. It's cash, and she is one who cares a great deal about the original problems that you, my listener, have. And she has a family practice, deals with orthopedics, and offers also urgent care. 875-1005. That's 875-1005. 1005. And she's on North Access Road, just a pistol shot down from the Access Pharmacy in Hickson. We are the station in which you report and the world decides. We say, love your neighbor and buy local. Love your neighbor, buy local. Near is better than far, small than big, simple. Yeah, that's it. Then complex. And then in the footnotes where the fleas wave their scimitars about and their lances, personal is better than corporate, and physical is better than abstract. I'm for the flea that's got the red cross on his tunic. This is David Tulis, and we have what about Volkswagen? Volkswagen, we have a story that dwarfs the Volkswagen crisis. Volkswagen shares have plunged 40%. This emissions crisis is deemed an existential threat to the company. It's really not that bad. It may be bad for shareholders, but there's a story far bigger that we're going to get to.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After this mild start, another dry and warm day out there for your Tuesday. Pretty nice with partly cloudy skies, highs later on 80 to 82. Tonight, fair, comfortable lows into the upper 50s. For the midweek, looking good through Thursday, dry with some sunshine and highs of around 80. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson, or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Patrick Neal at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
That smells so good. Smells like a big Italian dinner. But you're going to walk out with two. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You get the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. My favorite Italian restaurant of all the time. Now, I'm living in Hickson. I go to Raphael's right down the street in Hickson Pike, right near Highland Plaza. You're in Saudi Daisy? Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria in Saudi Daisy. Just next to Saudi Daisy Church of God. Hey, you're in Signal Mountain. There's a Raphael's Italian Restaurant and a Pizzeria. It's right on the main drag. You're going to love the pasta, the pizza. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You get the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Tastes so good. Bring the whole family. Come on, Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Mangia. Salute.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. It's finally looking a bit brighter in the Carolinas with sunshine expected after torrential rains that killed at least 12. Flooding still a danger. This woman in Columbia, South Carolina escaped.
Our neighbors helped us get out over the fence. So we got out and we're safe.
Across South Carolina, 18 dams have been breached, 9 of them in the central part of the state.
Fox's Jonathan Siri in Forest Acres, South Carolina. The NTSB will help the Coast Guard investigate the sinking of a cargo ship in Hurricane Joaquin near the Bahamas. The agency's Bella Denzar.
We'll be looking at all the factors that have affected the safety. So what happened, why it happened, ultimately to prevent this from happening again.
One body's been found among the 33 on board. The top U.S. commander in Afghanistan faces a Senate panel today for questions over troop numbers in the war-torn nation. Fox News. We report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
I have advanced the sky striping story thanks to Marvin Herndon, a scientist in San Diego, who had a paper published, about a 16-page document that was published on fly ash, coal fly ash, and its use as a particulate agent in the sky. Remember, we've got we're being subjected to flyovers by jets, and they are depositing material in the sky to dim the sun. That's what's happening. It is a kind of official pollution, a sanctioned pollution that is poured out by the ton. No doubt by the tens of thousands of tons across the U.S., across other Western countries, and for a duration which we can only guess at. We know that sky striping has been probably policy since the 1960s, so up to 50 years of this treatment, and we are inhaling these particles. They are official pollution, and yet they are outside the scope of the Environmental Protection Agency. We are to believe. We can only surmise that that's why it's allowed, because somehow behind the veil of national security, behind the claims of necessity, the national government, the Washington people, the deep state, if you have an amicable attitude toward them, you can call them the good people, are controlling the weather. And they are controlling it, though often not very well. There are collateral losses, as in lives under the gurgle of flashing waters in South Carolina, and people are perishing, their houses being swept away, their cars rumbled over by water waves in streets and boulevards and across countryside. And the use of particulate matter to mark up the sky, to alter weather patterns, to make rain go away, to make rain come, to alter the paths of storms, are well within computer models, and the program has been going on apace. Though there is this very, very funny, in a way kind of pathetic, story parallel in academia, where academicians are proposing a massive chemtrail program be at least studied, right? We should at least study having a global, massive chemtrail program dispersing chemical agents and other agents into the sky to alter the weather and, as we are supposed to think now, dim the sun, the great enemy. The sun is the great enemy of humankind, and we have to dim it. The sun has already been dimmed about 20% since the 1950s, according to a study by an Israeli hydrologist reported a couple years ago in the BBC. Now, on my website, which is Nooganomics.com, you're going to have the report. I'd say of the dozens of stories that I have written covering this story in Chattanooga in the past year and a half, since March of 2014, this is perhaps the most significant one that advances the story. We have the advances in the analysis by Dr. Herndon, Marvin Herndon, whose website, by the way, is nuclearplanet.com, and it's a very old-fashioned website. It hasn't changed design in probably 25 years, but it really doesn't matter, because this is a kind of a crusty old scientist who's written many, many papers on topics about the nuclear core of the planet And he has, for example, a paper called Terracentric Nuclear Fission Georeactor. It's one of his papers. Okay. And then another one, Nuclear Georeactor Generation of the Earth's Geomagnetic Field. That's another one of his papers. Okay. Very, very dry geological oriented story essays. He's a geophysicist. The story is essentially the following, and I would say it's a major development for us in our knowledge of this event. And that is that the government, the national government, the good people, thank you, President Obama, who's accelerating the program in great measure, is using coal burning waste from coal boilers that ordinarily is a pollutant. In fact, the Winston steam plant, I think its name is, in northeastern Tennessee, had in 2008 the sludge spill. Remember that? Well, that sludge spill was of coal, slurified coal fly ash, which is very, very fine and has to be kept in mud form. Otherwise, it'll just take to the wind, right? It's so light, it'll take to the wind. So to avoid it being air pollution, it's kept as a kind of water pollution, a kind of mud in those holding tanks. And remember the story, one of them broke, and a mountain of sludge kind of washed across a neighborhood and half submerged a dozen houses or so back in 2008. Well, Dr. Herndon has determined that coal fly ash is maybe the principal material used by jets. It could be, and I'm going to ask him about that in a few minutes. So make sure you don't go away. And if you have someone who's concerned about air pollution in Chattanooga, have them hear what this man says. And also, take some time to read. Okay, it's fine listening to radio, but the man who matters is the man who reads, and that's what I'm always pointing you in that direction, to read things. Read the Bible, right? Read estimable authors like John Calvin, and then read the number 7 media platform in Chattanooga, which is Nooganomics.com, and that is the number 7 media platform of which I'm the editor. My name is David Tulis. And I am brought to you here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio by Bruce Krebs. Bruce Krebs is the man to help you get into your own business. And he has here on our station every other Wednesday, just after my show, every other Wednesday, Entrepreneur Hour. We've got today Danielle Mitchell coming in for an hour after the David Tulis show. And she's all about health and orthopedics and urgent care, and is a great, very lively physician, and you'll enjoy hearing Danielle Mitchell. And she runs the Chattanooga Sports Institute, and so Bruce Krebs is the man, also alternating with Danielle with Entrepreneur Hour here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We're online at just put a .com at the end of all that, and on your smartphone you can hear us with the TuneIn Radio app. It's free. Just type in Hot News Talk Radio, and then we become your favorite, even if you are well beyond the range of our pulsing, powerful AM 1000 watt signal in Chattanooga. We are the Chattanooga station, and brought to you also by Eric Pelton. Eric Pelton is the numbers guy and runs E.J. Pelton Company, which is an accounting and tax service that works to help you keep more of what you have earned. Eric Pelton has been in the business a long time. He's a veteran, and yet a very lively man. You think for someone who's an accountant, he's just too lively for his own good. But there he is, Eric Pelton, and the website is EJ Pelton Company, or ejpelton.com, and the number is 622-3156. That's 622-3156. Give Eric a call today and tell him you're the Nooganomics.com reader, and that you enjoy the David Tulis show, and that you'd like to meet with him. There are hundreds of what are called law enforcers here in Chattanooga for 3 days. Yesterday was the first day of ROCIC. ROCIC is an acronym that is part of the national surveillance apparatus. Now, we need to understand that the federal government has no police power domestically, right? Has no domestic police power, and yet by hook and crook, it has created what appears to be a national policing system, again, in violation of our constitutional conceptions of local control, local economy, and local police. Self-government is the premise behind those ideas. And we are, by the way, we are a very pro-government station. We're very, very pro-government. The first pro that we attach ourselves to is self-government. And then in the end, if we have to have federal government, well, we'll take it, okay? But only if we have to. And it looks like more and more, that we are having to take federal government in increasing expansion. Even though you think that after World War II, there was a total government. The national power had become a total state and a total warfare economy. How can it be any more than that? Well, it has. It's just that it's changed in its mechanisms. And one of those mechanisms is Regional Organized Crime Information Center. And it had its 24th annual homicide conference, and it's being held at the Chattanooga Convention Center. It began on yesterday, and will go through tomorrow. And there are a couple stories that I'm looking at. One is from our CBS radio, our CBS affiliate. We are the CBS radio, and our CBS television affiliate is WDEF. Eric Judd has a story out of the Rocky Conference. And he has this afternoon, he says, the officers will meet to discuss various ways of investigating mass killings, of which we are preparing for in light of the pharmaceutical industry's great success in finding consumers for its products who are very often in a mind-altered circumstance and in a depressed mode on account of them having taken cycles of uppers and downers, which is how you get hooked on those in the public school system. And so we have mass shooters who are pharmacopians who love the strength of the pill. And then we have another group, which are the Muslim terrorists and Muslim attackers who are finding their way to God. They're finding a quiet approach to Him in their hearts, and then to have His final favor, to have a kind of indulgence for their sins. They have the chance of death at the hand of the enemy, which of course would be the Chattanooga Police Department and Sheriff Jim Hammond's deputies. And so they, here in our locale and around the country, are not the whole country. This Rokik is just in the southeast part of the country. And this organism here is going to be looking at mass killings and how to investigate them. There's a Chattanooga Police Sergeant, Bill Phillips, who's quoted by Eric Judd of TV 12. He says, "They will see things over the next 2.5 days that would just open eyes. Hopefully when they go to the next crime scene or when they go back to doing interviews on a case they're already working on, these things will snap in as they're doing what they need to do." And there's a sheriff from Oklahoma, and he's pointing out that crime is trans-jurisdictional. Therefore, since it's interstate, it's also crime is increasingly a matter of federal prerogative. He says crime does not stop in your county or state lines. It goes across state lines, and knowing other agencies and contacts numbers in other states is real helpful. I mean, that's hardly grammatical. But that's Sheriff Ron Lockhart of Sequoia County, Oklahoma. The story in the Chattanooga Times-Free Press this morning, it tells about by David Cobb, the writer at the Chattanooga Times-Free Press, has the headline on the web version that the Corker says police need access to personal data to combat cyber theft, and we have the photograph of Senator Corker and Chuck Fleischman, the federal representative to the Washington government, or should I say, the federal government's Washington representative to us, whom we elect, right? And Corker says that there needs to be more access by the modern state to all information, including innocent information, private information, to the omniscient state, cannot be hidden. And that of course is a blow against the idea of liberty. Liberty requires privacy, as the English say. There has to be privacy. There has to be an area that is your domain exclusively, your family's domain, and no soul alive has access to it. That's what capitalism is. Capitalism requires there to be a sector which is completely its own, which is sort of sovereign in its own realm. That's called sphere sovereignty by Abraham Kuyper, the very great theologian from the Dutch world, writing in the early part of the 20th century. Corker says, that whole issue to me has got to resolve itself in a way that allows you to do your job. Now, he's talking about cyber attacks and intellectual theft. As the world changes, he says, more and more people are using electronic information and relying on that. The story points out that Corker is very hostile to Edward Snowden, the man who outed the good people and their total scheme. And the story says he cited recent cyber theft of information from more than 21 million former and current government employees from the OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, which came to light this summer as a national instance, David Cobb says, of the challenges police may be dealing with on a local level. Many of you have been involved in the military. Many of you have been involved in intelligence in the past, he says, and all of you know that that's just what governments do to each other, right? Corker said, I could go further, but I won't in this setting. But the fact is, what matters most is that what's happening at the individual level, that's absolute theft. You can steal people's personal property. Y'all are dealing with it at all kinds of levels and more frequently. Well, because cyber theft is taking place by foreign governments, well, our government has to do the same. It seems to be what the good senator is suggesting, that its agencies have to have total access to prevent total access of other strangers. Rather the local stranger, rather the stranger in Washington have access to our information and our privileged material than strangers in Beijing or Brussels, seems to be the point. Well, there's more danger to liberty, to constitutional government from Washington than any other source, more than from any other source. And we talk about proportion, and the idea of proportionality comes up in the Volkswagen story. You remember the idea of local economy favors the small over the big, and it suggests that city governments, the county governments, insofar as they occupy themselves with economic development, which they shouldn't at all, but they do. Let's just assume that they do, and that it's at least in pencil for now. We assume that they care about economic development and want to be business partners, right? The government as commercial entity. Commercial government is my shorthand for this whole phenomenon. Well, how is it that governments favor the big? Well, governments favor the big because big is more manageable. If you have one big applicant for a piece of property at Enterprise South, well, it's easy to deal with rather than hundreds of small petitioners wanting a piece of land on the cheap upon which to build a hovel, a hut, a factory, or a retail outlet. Rather have one big party move in, give that big party some grand favors, near $1 billion, and then hope for the best. The story about the Volkswagen debacle is overshadowed in the sense of the sky striping story that you'll read about today at Nooganomics.com. There is the air pollution that we need to worry about, not nitrogen oxide coming out of the back of a Passat. Okay, that is not diesel Passat emissions are not a danger to anybody, right? They're not a danger to anybody in a relative scale. Relative to what? Well, relative to what we see in the sky today, which is to say negative emissions by jet aircraft laying down the necessary cloak over the ground. And the cloak over the ground, of course, is cloud cover. And you have cloud cover artificially manufactured by coal fly ash, according to J. Marvin Herndon. That's the story at Nooganomics.com today. I'd say it's the most important story that I've done on it because it's the clearest analysis by a scientist, right? This is a scientist, a kind of a crusty nuclear chemist, and who's just gotten around to writing about this problem, and it's come to his attention because of his concern for family members' health on land under a once all blue sky of San Diego. It's not blue anymore. There's no more blue sky in San Diego because of the constant emissions by jet, and that is a program. It's not a mistake. The weather system hasn't changed to make the air up there over San Diego damp. It's always been dry from geographical reasons, but now it's always mucked up. It's always milky white, and the sun doesn't come down like it used to. I'm for painters. I really think that painters should be able to use all the colors of their palettes when they go out to paint. Nowadays over Chattanooga, the blue can be left behind. The blue tube is left among the brushes and the doodads of the artist's nomenclature back at the studio. And when he goes out in his plein air endeavors, he doesn't have to use the blue. Why? Because there's no blue sky, hardly ever. And we have milky white, we have yellow, we have brownish, we have hazy, but blue, well, no. That in Chattanooga, in many ways, has been banished. Just look at the aerial activity and ask yourself, is that natural? Okay, just ask yourself that question. Look at my photo gallery today. It's at Nooganomics.com. The website for The Man Who Matters is not very popular. Okay, not a lot of people go there. Well, and the reason is not a lot of people matter. But you matter. You're here, and I do thank you for that. And the man who reads that website, that's probably maybe someone in another crowd than you, but he matters too. And there's a little bit of crossover there I'd like you to help me with. We want to have more small companies in Chattanooga, and we want to have, I would say, fewer big ones. The reliance on the big makes Chattanooga open to more peril. If you have lots of small players with varying markets, one market may do well, and another market may do badly. But if you have a lot of players in various markets in your town, you're not going to be vulnerable to a big hit, right? Because you have no big players. An economy, a local economy, according to one study that has many, many small players, is healthier, and the people in that economy, in that town, are more integrated among themselves than in a city or town that has just a few major players. That's a study which was reported on a couple of years ago at Nooganomics.com, just by the way. And I don't have the citation here in front of me, but I remember it very well because it talked about the health of the people. In physical health, your health is better in a lococentric, small player local economy than in a national-centric, big player local economy with less local blood, less local ingenuity, less local ownership. There's a scale problem that we have to deal with here, and I say that because I want to point out that I don't think that the Chamber of Commerce Foundation, which goes after these big players, can change. It can't change its operation. Okay, it will not change. You can't argue it to change to think locally. It can't, and it can't because it is invested in the state economy. The idea of the state as the economic player, the chief economic player, the state in Tennessee, and also the state in the federal system as well. These are this is the state economy that the chambers of commerce invariably favor. They are pragmatic. They are not organic in their perspective. You, my listener, I hope are organic in your perspective. I hope you can not hate anybody down there, but just realize that they have grave limitations. What we need to have is not a company that comes here, as did Volkswagen, and then has 3,000 people on the payroll. We don't need that. What we need are 3,000 small businesses being started by people just like you. If we have 3,000 people just like you starting small businesses in your field, we are going to weather the coming cataclysm better. And here we have a regulatory cataclysm. It's not even an economic one. It's just regulatory, a tiff over regulations on a minor emissions point. Diesel engines so many times more cleaner than in the past 10 years. And now we have this test defeating device, that software that misleads regulator. Well, I say bravo. Go ahead and mislead the regulators. That's fine. But what we have is a scale problem. The scale problem looks several ways. But getting back to the point of local economy, we need to not be confident in the big. Because if we are, we face big losses, right? We face big losses, big humiliations. The share value of Volkswagen having gone down by half on account of this tiff, this spat, this little brouhaha over tailpipes. We need to have, I'd say, not an institutional perspective, which is what you get from the Chamber of Commerce and big business. What we need to have is a human perspective. We need to want to have the small, not thinking that the small is perfect, not thinking that the small is comprehensive. It's not. It's small, right? Dozens and dozens of small businesses like the one you, my listener, can start. You. I'm much more confident in you and people like you than I am in Martin Winterkorn's and their like coming to here out of Germany. I favor the small over the big because I have confidence in the marketplace. I have confidence in the free market. And I would say that I have confidence in you, my listener, and people like you, okay? I have confidence in you. I'm very optimistic that you mean well. Local economy means well. We really care about others. We want there to be prosperity. We want there to be gains. We want there to be capitalism. Capitalism, of course, relies on character.
After this mild start, another dry and warm day out there for your Tuesday. Pretty nice with partly cloudy skies, highs later on 80 to 82. Tonight, fair, comfortable lows into the upper 50s. For the midweek, looking good through Thursday, dry with some sunshine and highs of around 80. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Tired of insurance companies? Tired of doctors that won't spend time with you? Do something different. Leave the sick care model of medicine and come to Dr. Danielle Mitchell, the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health, where we're interested in long-term health solutions, not the quick fixes. Come see me, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, at the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health. I'm all about the long-term healthcare solutions and doing what's best. On the web, you can find me at ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. That's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Or call us at 875-1005, 875-1005, or find us on social media, Facebook, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, or the ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Let's go, ya!
Hey, all you gun enthusiasts! Carter Shooting Supply has just bought a crazy load of guns and is having a crazy huge sale event going on now. A huge inventory of Smith & Wesson, Glock, Ruger, and Taurus, all on sale. Taurus guns have a mail-in rebate for $25 to $50. All long guns and all ammo on sale, too, just in time for hunting season. Come in and take advantage of this crazy huge sale event going on now at Carter Shooting Supply, or shop from home by going to cartershootingsupply.com. Highway 58, Harrison. Check our prices before you buy.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
We do the best quality work. We have the best customer service, the most competitive prices around.
Cell Surgeon, a painless operation to fix your sick device.
Well, if you have a cheap charger or something that's not really designed for your phone, it can mess with your battery. It can actually fry your phone. So you need to make sure you have a quality product that's going to be designed for your phone.
Cell Surgeon, your smartphone doctor's in the house at the Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
You charge it in the morning, and by noon it's at 50% under normal use. That means your battery's pretty much dead, and once you've reached that point, it starts to deteriorate.
Cell Surgeon, call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com.
We do free estimates. If your phone's not working properly, bring it in. We're happy to take a look at it and diagnose it and see what we think is wrong with it at no charge. Most phone repairs can be done in 30 minutes or less.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
Don't take it in the bathroom. Don't ever put it in your back pocket. And don't charge your phone while you're sleeping.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. That's cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. Cell Surgeon, your smart device doctor is in the house.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
If the South would have won,
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy, Chattanooga. CBS News, I'm Frank Sedapani. The war in Afghanistan is not going as planned, and the general in charge is facing tough questions at a hearing underway on Capitol Hill. Live to CBS News correspondent Stephen Portnoy.
On the recent fall of the city of Kunduz to the Taliban, Senate Armed Services Chair John McCain urges the president to reconsider his timetable for the drawdown of U.S. forces.
Wars do not end just because politicians say so.
Top U.S. Commander General John Campbell is also facing questions about last Saturday's strike on a Doctors Without Borders hospital. Campbell called the bombing a mistake.
We would never intentionally target a protected medical facility.
22 people in that hospital died, including patients and medical staff. Frank?
The federal government is proposing a $1.9 million fine against a Chicago drone company for dozens of unauthorized flights over Chicago and New York. More than half the flights violated restricted airspace. The death toll from floods across the Carolinas stands at 13 now. The latest victim was a missing 82-year-old man found dead in his vehicle. Sheriff Randy Garrett fears the worst is yet to come in hard-hit Clarendon County.
We have roads that have been washed away. We've lost about 20 bridges. What's not hasn't already washed away will probably wash away tomorrow.
FEMA spokeswoman Hannah Vick says the government is on the ground helping.
Right now, we are looking to assist individuals in any way that we can. We want to make sure that folks that are out of their homes have the resources that they need.
CBS's David Begnaud gave us a snapshot from Columbia, South Carolina, the state capital.
It's a devastating mess. There is water all over the place. In some places, it's ankle deep. In other places, it's neck deep. The water is filled with sewage and oil and trash and debris.
Hillary Clinton's latest TV commercial features a familiar complaint that she's the victim of a right-wing conspiracy.
Officially, it's still search and...
The Republicans finally admit it.
Republican Kevin McCarthy saying the committee investigating Benghazi...
The ad goes back to a comment by House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy that the committee on Benghazi set up to investigate the deadly consulate attack in Libya was created to wreck Clinton's White House campaign. The Coast Guard is still looking for survivors from the cargo ship that sank off the Bahamas during Hurricane Joaquin, but CBS's Mark Strassman tells us hope is fading.
Officially, it's still search and rescue, but there is a window for survival that is rapidly closing. The Coast Guard estimates it's about 5 days that someone can survive in that water. We are now into day 6.
The biggest names in the sports fantasy business are defending the integrity of the industry, but gaming lawyer Daniel Wallach says social media allegations that a DraftKings manager used inside information to win money on FanDuel could be a serious problem.
It has the potential for shaking the industry at its foundation, and at the very least, it will lead to regulation.
The Dow's up 80 points. This is CBS News.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? I'm Jim O'Connor, independent life insurance agent specializing in term life insurance. There's been a price war between the major life insurance companies. If you've had your term life policy more than 2 years, you may be paying too much. For example, a male age 45, non-tobacco user issue preferred best, $1 million of coverage is only $56 a month guaranteed level for 10 years. Or a male age 50, non-tobacco user issue preferred best, $500,000 of coverage is only $91 a month guaranteed level for 20 years. The life insurance industry is going through exciting changes. Make sure you're not paying too much for your term insurance. For new or replacement term life insurance, call for a free quote. 800-799-0903. That's 800-799-0903. Don't pay too much for your term insurance. Call 800-799-0903 or visit my website at term22.com. That's term22.com. Rates based on standard underwriting and may vary by state.
President Obama has rearranged his travel schedule to include a stop Friday in the Oregon town where 9 people died in the nation's latest mass shooting. CBS News White House correspondent Pam Coulter.
Visit a community reeling from gun violence. He spoke at the service for church shooting victims in Charleston in June, and now he's making a return visit to Roseburg, Oregon to meet privately with relatives of victims of the community college shooting.
There are more American families, moms, dads, children, whose lives have been changed forever.
Mr. Obama made a campaign stop in Roseburg in 2008. Pam Coulter, CBS News, the White House.
In Newport, Kentucky, a 125-pound python wrapped itself around a reptile shop owner at feeding time. Police arrived just in time to get the snake off as it was crushing the life out of the man. He's expected to recover. Frank Sedapani, CBS News.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance?
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis. A story we've been following here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio for the past year and a half has been what I call sky striping. This is the tattooing of the sky, the disfigurement of the sky, the envenoming even of the air over our county and our city by polluting jets. So what are these jets doing up there? Why are their plumes not disappearing right after the jet passes a bit of air? Why do the plumes persist? In fact, become over time, with numerous crisscrossings of jet traffic over the county, clouds. They become a haze, a kind of haze pot. Chattanooga, once known as the country's most polluted city from ground pollution, now seems to be the victim of air pollution of some kind. So what is the nature of that pollution? Is it deliberate? Is it all accidental? Is it something in the nature of the fuel? Are jets burning green fuel and then running tracks around Chattanooga to lay down this stripe? What is the story? To help close the gap on our understanding today, we've got Dr. J. Marvin Herndon. He's a geophysicist and a nuclear chemist. His website is nuclearplanet.com, and he's a warhorse, you might say, in the world of science. He has many papers that he has written about the nature of the planet, with discussions, for example, one paper is called Terracentric Nuclear Fission Georeactor, a review article, and he has studies about the interior of the Earth, nuclear fission in the middle of the Earth, and things of that kind. He has a very long record of publishing. And last year, something came to his notice, something that is of interest to you, my listener, here in Chattanooga. And you, my listener, if you are watching us on YouTube from a faraway place, we certainly welcome you as well. Dr. Herndon, your paper, the most recent paper that has created a firestorm of controversy, is on the point of the particulate matter laid by jets apparently as a matter of policy over your town. You are from San Diego, and you used to have always blue skies in San Diego. What happened?
Well, what happened is that the spraying that apparently has been going on, the spraying of particulate matter into the troposphere, the lower atmosphere, that has been going on for perhaps 15 years on a sporadic basis, since about 2013, has been ramped up to a full operational level. And when this happened in San Diego, I became concerned and wondered, well, what is being sprayed? And that started me thinking about the measurements people had made and posted on the internet. Many people have collected rainwater samples and posted the analyses on the internet. Of course, when you don't know what's been being sprayed, you don't know what elements to analyze for. And generally speaking, people have typically analyzed for two elements, aluminum and barium, because these elements had been mentioned in some patents that are perhaps related to geoengineering. Occasionally, someone would also measure strontium. So these three elements, aluminum, barium, and strontium, in rainwater, started me thinking. The barium and strontium behave very similar chemically. They're in the same column, the group 2A elements on the periodic table. Their behavior is similar. And if you take, for example, a piece of cement, which has a lot of calcium in it, and you analyze it, you'll find strontium and also a little bit of barium in there because they behave similarly. And that was a tip-off to me that maybe what we're dealing with is a natural substance, or at one time was a natural substance, because I couldn't see why an artificial substance they would make with both barium and strontium. It seemed more reasonable that if they were just spraying a chemical, that they would spray, more or less a pure chemical. And so I thought back to some research I had done many years ago, where I related the parts of the inside of the earth to a particular type of meteorite. And I did this by looking at ratios. Ratio is one element divided by another, because with ratios, for example, you can compare a tree trunk to a toothpick. And that's basically what I did. I knew that whatever it is that was being put into the air, water extracted elements from it. Now, people have done measurements about what elements are extracted from coal fly ash by water. In fact, some researchers in Spain did some very thorough experiments. And basically what I did was I compared their results to the rainwater results for barium, strontium, and aluminum, and found that the proportions were really quite similar. And so that resulted in the first paper that I published in the scientific literature, identifying coal fly ashes as the possible substance that was being sprayed. Science is a pursuit of truth, and this is the way science should be. But unfortunately, the scientific community has been largely funded by the government since 1951 and has been subject to some rules that were made, including reviews by one's competitors, where the reviewer is given anonymity, secret reviews. And so the science community has evolved in a way so people protect themselves. They don't challenge the consensus mentality, because if you challenge somebody's work, they're very likely they're going to get to review one of your proposals for funding and say some negative things. So this is unfortunately what had happened in the science community. And so geoscientists never questioned what it is they're spraying. In fact, they don't even mention the spraying. Even those people who study phenomenon that's happening in the atmosphere. So this was the first thing.
Even people who are very much for the environment don't look in the sky. Even environmentalists, Environmental Defense Fund,
they may look in the sky, or if they look in the sky and they see what is happening, they keep quiet about it because they don't want to lose their funding. And this even applies to agencies or to nonprofit organizations, for example, because if there's a fear that if they talk about something the government is doing, then the IRS might decide that they are not really nonprofit organizations. You recall during the last political election, there were allegations of the IRS being involved in a political way when they shouldn't have been. So this is all of these hesitancies are fear-based.
This is David Tulis. This is David Tulis. We're talking with Dr. Marvin Herndon, a geophysicist and nuclear chemist from San Diego, and he has published very recently a paper that has created a great controversy now over the substance of the emissions from jets, including those jets we are surmising over Chattanooga, we have major sky striping days. It's also called chemtrailing. It's kind of a shorthand. And it is these are efforts that alter the weather patterns. Now, Dr. Herndon, let me ask about your theory. Your thesis is that coal fly ash is the main material that's put into the air by the method of aerosolization. So, tell us briefly how aerosols are created. How it is that fly ash that comes out of coal burning furnaces and the waste product, how that is, first of all, how that's dispersed, and then also, what are the benefits of it? Why is it seen as a benefit to use that over some other thing that might require more expense or more complexity in the manufacture of? What are the benefits of fly ash?
Let me start in a little bit backward way of saying it. Suppose that you ask the question, where does the substance come from that is being sprayed? I mean, it's quite obvious from the extent of spraying that perhaps millions of tons per year are presently being sprayed. In fact, maybe many millions of tons per year. Where do these fine particles come from? Now, if there was a mining operation of that scale to mine rock and then pulverize it to mill it down to a very, very fine powder, there would be a huge manufacturing, mining facilities, production facilities. And this would be evident to people. One of the things that people say is, well, where are the production facilities? Well, when coal is burned by utilities, it produces ash. And there are basically two kinds of ash. There's a heavy ash that settles out. And there's what's called fly ash. That's the very fine particles that used to go up the smokestack. But now, because it's a hazardous material, there are regulations that require coal fly ash to be trapped electrostatically and sequestered, usually in lined ponds. The utilities have the production facilities for trapping vast amounts of coal fly ash and processing this material. And there's increasing pressure from the utilities and their representatives to encourage commercial use. And for example, in cement. And yet it's also used in such questionable circumstances as a agricultural fill, a fertilizer for organic gardeners, which is very strange. It's very strange because during the formation of coal, many trace elements, toxic trace elements, such as mercury, such as arsenic, chromium-6, a whole slew of trace elements are trapped in the coal. And when coal burns, many of these trace elements go up the chimney and precipitate or collect on coal fly ash. The coal fly ash is loaded with toxic chemicals. And so this is the substance that is a waste product for utilities, and they want to get rid of rather than paying the cost of storing it. And there have been some spectacular accidents where storage facilities have been compromised, have ruptured and spilled into the community. There was one that happened in Tennessee in 2009. And so this is not the toxic material is known. And this is a product that's a waste product for the utilities, and it's a product that's a very fine grained material that is, in a sense, ideal for geoengineering. If ideal doesn't include the adverse health effects.
Well, let's talk about the ideals, Dr. Herndon. You're saying that this is cheap material. It has many of the fine qualities needed to have a vast geoengineering program. What are the advantages of coal fly ash? Why is it good? How does it work? Does the aluminum content of this ash help make it reflective, serving thereby the national policy purposes of deflecting sunlight?
Well, that's a good question. First of all, the production figure that is often quoted for coal fly ash is in the U.S. 140 million tons a year, and of course much more worldwide. And it's used. I have good evidence that this is the main component that is being used for ongoing geoengineering. Now, it's important first to separate these ideas. The academic community, the scientists at universities, talk about geoengineering as if it's some activity that might happen in the future. The reality is that geoengineering has been ongoing in a covert way for perhaps 15 years, with ramping up to full scale in the last several years. There's another difference. The academic community talks about putting reflecting substances in the stratosphere, in the upper atmosphere, which doesn't really mix with the air people breathe, and where substances remain suspended for perhaps 2 years. Whereas what is being observed is the spraying is in the troposphere, the lower atmosphere that mixes with the air people breathe. And so the spraying has to be done on a more or less continuous basis, because the particles fall out, they come to earth, they rain down, they mix in the air that people breathe. So there's a fundamental difference between what the academics are saying and what presumably is being done by the military in the lower atmosphere. Now, what about coal fly ash, and how does it behave? Well, when you make artificial clouds with coal fly ash, yes, it reflects sunlight. It acts as a shield, but it also holds heat in. So there's a real question in my mind as to what the net effect is. Are we simply cooling the earth, or are we keeping more heat in and in fact warming the earth? Plus, the coal fly ash that settles on areas of snow and ice tends to help absorb heat from the sun, leading to melting of ice. Coal fly ash also has two effects on weather. In the first place, if you were to put fine particles in the air, they would dilute the little rain droplets, so they would have trouble getting together and becoming big enough drops to be rain and fall to earth. Well, coal fly ash does that. But coal fly ash does something else. It's hygroscopic. In other words, it absorbs water. So it inhibits rainfall in that manner also. Now, eventually, if it were to inhibit rainfall over a period of time, eventually there would be enough moisture accumulated to have rainfall, and when you did, you'd have serious rainfall. It's rather like stress. You can add stress to something, like you can bend a piece of brittle material and produce stress in it up to a point, and then you reach the limit, and the thing shatters and breaks, and the stress is all of a sudden released. Well, this is like what happens with moisture in the air. You can inhibit the formation of rainfall, as I think is happening in California. We've had a drought now for several years, and but the weather moves from west to east, so you can inhibit rainfall in the clouds, which move on to the east, and eventually there becomes enough saturation of moisture that you have torrents of rain, perhaps in the middle of the Midwest, and you have floods. And this is what the consequence. Now, you might ask the question, why are people doing this?
Well, we're going to talk about that in the next segment. We're talking with J. Marvin Herndon. This is David Tulis. We're having an interview live at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with a geophysicist and a nuclear chemist who has a remarkable study that has just come out about the content of the sky striping program that's taking place over his town, San Diego, and may well be the content of what is sprayed over the air even here today in Chattanooga. This is David Tulis. I've got some things I want you to hear. Hang on.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After this mild start, another dry and warm day out there for your Tuesday. Pretty nice with partly cloudy skies, highs later on 80 to 82. Tonight, fair, comfortable lows into the upper 50s. For the midweek, looking good through Thursday, dry with some sunshine and highs of around 80. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson, or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Patrick Neal at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
That smells so good. Smells like a big Italian dinner. But you're going to walk out with two. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You got the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. My favorite Italian restaurant of all the time. Now, I'm living in Hickson. I go to Raphael's right down the street in Hickson Pike, right near Highland Plaza. You're in Saudi Daisy? Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria in Saudi Daisy. Just next to Saudi Daisy Church of God. Hey, you're on Signal Mountain. There's a Raphael's Italian Restaurant and a Pizzeria. It's right on the main drag. You're going to love the pasta, the pizza. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You got the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Tastes so good. Bring the whole family. Come on, Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Mangia. Salute.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action.
Fox News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. South Carolina officials asking for water donations for Columbia area residents after days of flooding. Chris Johnson helped evacuate his neighborhood.
A very stubborn old lady would not leave, so we actually had to pick her up and carry her out.
The weather there is calming down.
However, river flooding will continue to be the big concern over the next several days, with some rivers not forecast to crest at flood levels until this weekend.
Fox meteorologist Maria Molina. More details coming out about the gunman in last week's deadly Oregon shooting.
A couple of pages of writings left behind by the gunman who killed 9 people at Umpqua Community College point to worries about not having a girlfriend and feelings that while he was rational, those around him weren't.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers. President Obama will visit the town Friday. Prosecutors say former UN General Assembly President John Ash took $500,000 in bribes from a Chinese real estate mogul and others to help them get government contracts. Fox News Big Report.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
This is David Tulis. We're brought to you by Raphael's Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant. The great deal is you get 2 pizzas for the price of 1. That's Raphael's Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant in Hickson, Soddy Daisy, and on Taft Highway on Signal Mountain. And if you have a cell phone problem, make sure you contact Cell Surgeon in Northgate Mall by the Chicago Pizza. Cell Surgeon, your surgeon waits to perform surgery on your device and restore it to good health. 668-0100, 668-0100. And also remember, there's a great sale going on at Carter Shooting Supply, ammo, weapons, and let every man be armed and pray is what I would suggest. Following the advice of our Lieutenant Governor, Ron Ramsey, who says that every Christian man should bear arms. And he, of course, you can obtain permission to do that from the legislature through the State Department of Safety and Homeland Insecurity. You can become a licensed concealed carrier and be ready to defend women and children as needed in light of the threat of the hopped out assailant, consumer of pharmacy products, and the other who is a consumer of the Koran. We're talking with J. Marvin Herndon, who is a geophysicist and a nuclear chemist in San Diego. And last year, he looked up in the sky and he remarked something as a longtime scientist. He's been an author of many, many very deep and profound and no doubt mystifying scientific papers about the Earth and its core and many other topics. He noticed something, and that was that the blue sky of San Diego had disappeared. It had just gone away. And the cause is anthropogenic, meaning it comes from man. Now, the question is who these men are, what are they flying around to make that sky go away, and what is it they are depositing in the skies over his town? Dr. Herndon, your theory is that there's a waste product, which is the basis of the federal spraying program that is being enacted under the veil or behind the veil of national security. What is that product, and how does it work?
Okay, let me correct one word you said.
Please do.
Theory. I would rather say that I have scientific evidence that supports the identification of the substance as combustion coal fly ash. Now, that doesn't mean that it necessarily is that, except the evidence is very strong that it is, and there are experiments underway presently to obtain unimpeachable evidence. Just recently, some experiments were undertaken with aircraft trying to catch this particulate matter as it's being discharged from the jets. These experiments haven't been analyzed yet, and it's already becoming evident that probably the next round of experiments will involve the use of a jet to fly behind the tanker jets to collect the evidence. But as the situation stands, there's very strong evidence that the substance being sprayed is coal combustion fly ash. Just to recap briefly, when utilities burn coal, the heavy ash settles out, the very fine particles, the fly ash that used to go up the smokestack, are trapped and mandated to be trapped with electrostatic precipitators. These are the very fine materials that contain a lot of toxic substances. And this material, I believe, is the main ingredient that's being sprayed. And the spraying, look, the military has made it publicly, information publicly available that they intend to control the weather by 2025. This was a statement made back in the 1990s. And weaponizing weather has been something that's been being done for a long time. There were things done during the Vietnam War, for example. The idea was to cause rainfall, to make the Ho Chi Minh Trail impassable. There's the idea that you could have an enemy and you cause a drought and cause him to starve or his food crops to desiccate and die. This is where the military is headed in one sense, but there's more of a question as to controlling the weather, whether the military really has the good intentions of cooling the earth to combat supposed global warming, or whether the purpose is to heat the earth, perhaps to cause the Arctic to melt, to get at make it easier to get at the oil resources beneath the Arctic, and perhaps to open the frozen Northwest Passage. There's a lot of question as to what is happening and why it's happening, and I suspect that since the military now has literally a carte blanche to spray whatever they want to spray over humans for research and development, it said, they probably test everything they can that might have some military significance. I mean, the military has a long history of doing experiments on people. So this is what's happening, and so now we have to ask the question: what does coal fly ash do once it's sprayed into the lower atmosphere? And then we ask the question: what are the potential effects on people?
Well, can we start with the first part of that question, Dr. Herndon? And that would be, why coal fly ash? How does it work? Why does it serve the purposes of the deep state, if you will, or the good people, as I call them? Why fly ash? What are the favorable properties of that particulate matter?
Well, it's already comes in it's a byproduct. It's a waste product that's produced in vast quantities, and it comes in very fine grain sizes naturally, and can be reduced by, for example, milling with cyclone classifiers, they're called, to separate even the finer particles out. fine particles are useful for spraying because they tend to stay in the air for a little while. They tend to shield the sun. They cause sunlight to be reflected, but they also hold heat in when sprayed in the lower atmosphere, artificial clouds. And so it really becomes a question of what is the net effect? Is it heating, keeping the heat in and ultimately heating the earth, or is it reflecting more sunlight and causing it to cool the earth? And then there are the ancillary effects that prevents rainfall. It inhibits rainfall. I mean, ultimately, they'll get enough water concentration that it'll pour, literally pour. But by inhibiting rainfall, it also adds to the heating of the earth. That is another point.
We could say that the heating of the earth by the use of the sky dome, the creation of the sky dome, if you want,
by heating the earth, I say it means that not allowing the heat that comes into the earth to leave again.
Right, and that should happen at night, right?
We live in a state of equilibrium. Ideally, the amount of heat that comes into the surface of the earth is equal to the amount of heat that leaves the surface of the earth, and we have a net balance of 0. Now, if you shift that equilibrium by putting in artificial clouds that keep some of the heat from leaving the earth, then you end up with a net warming effect. And this is what I think may be happening with the spraying. And nobody in the science community really talks about what's going on. They're probably told not to talk about it, or they sense that if they mention something, they might lose their grants and ultimately end up becoming unemployed. So it's the coal fly ash is an ideal substance for weather modification. You can prevent rainfall. You can change the weather in a profound way, and even direct the movement of clouds. But there's a price to be paid, and the price to be paid comes from the toxic substances that are part of coal fly ash, and this is one of the best kept secrets. I mean, you hear that the government can't keep secrets. It's kept a pretty good secret about what is being sprayed. There's a major disinformation campaign to convince people, well, these trails are really contrails, ice crystals formed by exhaust from jet aircraft. Well, that's nonsense. In San Diego, one rarely, if ever, finds contrails. This is before the spraying, because we live in a very warm and dry climate, whereas contrails form in a cold and humid environment. Moreover, what happens to these artificial clouds is that they disperse and become a white haze in the sky. I mean, the San Diego sky is more often than not now looks like it has a white haze. This white haze is characteristic of very small particles scattering sunlight, and that's so there's a lot of disinformation, false information, the public being deceived by what is going on, and there's good reason for the deception, because coal fly ash is a toxic nightmare. First of all, the particles are very small, so when you inhale them, they embed deeply into the lungs, and they're even small enough to go through the skin, to be ingested, to eaten, and even to go through the eyes. And when these particles contact water in your body, moisture in your body, they can release toxic substances, including aluminum in a chemically mobile form.
Describe that. What does that mean?
Go ahead.
What is that? Talk about a little bit about aluminum, because aluminum is in the air all the time in Chattanooga. We have constant readings from the 7 county and city pollution control bureau monitors of aluminum, strontium, and barium. These are, as you say, the aluminum at least is toxic. What are the? Talk about maybe one of those 3 or all 3 of them as toxic elements for my listener who is breathing them in even as we speak to each other on the phone, Dr. Herndon.
Well, you'll also find a host of other toxic elements in the air, including arsenic and chromium and mercury that come from coal fly ash. But aluminum is particularly heinous, and this is the reason. Aluminum is an abundant element in the crust of the earth, something like 8%. But it's locked up tight as aluminum oxides and aluminum oxides in silicates. And so the creatures of the earth, including humans, evolved or came to live on the earth in never exposed to aluminum that could move around chemically. Now, back in the 1970s, there was a lot of concern about acid rain caused by sulfur dioxide emissions from coal burning power plants, for example, that when combined with water in the atmosphere made the rain acid. And acid rain was considered dangerous because acid will extract aluminum in a chemically mobile form from certain materials, such as mine tailings. And that makes it available to do things like kill whole forests. And so serious efforts were made to eliminate acid rain. Well, this is the same thing that's happening with coal fly ash and neutral water, or the kind of water that rainfall is slightly acid. And in experiments with distilled water, water extracts toxic elements from coal fly ash, including aluminum in a form that's mobile. So what this means is that it makes aluminum available to creatures of the earth, including plants, and it's toxic. Now, aluminum has been implicated in neurological diseases, Alzheimer's, for example, autism, Parkinson's disease, attention deficit disorder. All of these things have shown significant growth during the 15 years that this geoengineering has been taking place. This is a major, major concern, and I suggest that if the medical data is honestly preserved and presented, that since about 2013, there'll probably be a very sharp spike in the occurrence of these neurological diseases. Incidentally, I'm sure you're familiar with the demise of a large portion of the bee population, the honeybee population.
Yes.
Well, some scientists in the UK discovered that bees, when they get aluminum in their brain, they have some behavior that's similar to Alzheimer's. They forget what their job is, and they eventually die. I suspect that there are a lot of populations of creatures and plants as well that are suffering from this spraying, because the spraying introduces aluminum into the environment in a chemically mobile form, in a form that can get into plants and into animals and into people.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with Dr. Marvin Herndon, who is a geophysicist and a nuclear chemist. He's in San Diego, and he's published just a few days ago a very important paper that is now in dispute. It's in dispute by you might say establishment interests that have tried to squash and spike his analysis. It's a 16-page academic paper, and I urge you to go to Nooganomics.com, the website in Chattanooga that covers local economy and the free markets. And as it turns out to be, with a Christian and libertarian angle, is the premier environment-oriented, environment-friendly media platform in Chattanooga, making the argument that we need to stop pollution, especially if it comes from parties unknown who have the helm of government in the steering wheel of government in at least one of their many tentacled hands. Dr. Herndon says that coal fly ash is the waste product that's used in the stratospheric and tropospheric aerosol modification program, which is often called chemtrailing, but that's an old military word. It's really SAG, stratospheric aerosol geoengineering. And Dr. Herndon, let me just ask you to speculate about how it is that this is legal. How is it that there is a wall of secrecy, a wall of privacy, if you will, behind this operation that involves military people? And how is it that they're satisfied that they're not doing something wrong? What is the argument that the well-intentioned military people running this program and the contractors, what is the argument given to them that allays their moral hazard concerns, their concerns about maybe doing something damaging to the people of this country? How are they told that this is okay?
I'm not sure that I know the answer to that question. I have brought this attention to the mayor, the city council, and the chief of police of San Diego on several occasions, and I've never received an answer as to why they don't at least warn the most at-risk people, the pregnant women, the children, the elderly, the persons who have compromised respiratory systems or immune systems. Why don't they at least warn these people? I suspect that at a superficial level, they were told that geoengineering is necessary to save the earth. But I wonder whether maybe Congress passed some secret legislation authorizing this kind of program. The Congress doesn't seem to notice what's going on or care what's going on. You would think this would be a really hot political issue because it involves the safety of people. But where are our elected representatives? Why do they not question? What kind of official coercion has been put into play? This is a good question, and it's a question I do not know the answer to.
Well, we would have to surmise J. Marvin Herndon, the geophysicist and nuclear chemist, chatting with us here from San Diego. We would have to surmise that they're on the part of military people who are just employees, that they're not acting in bad faith, that they're being told this program of which you are a part serves an important, vital national security interest. We are combating global warming. We're combating climate change, etc. And you have a part to play. You just need to be quiet about it because it is sort of off the books. It's not something that's publicized in the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal, and you dare not speak to those entities about it.
Well, there's one thing I'll bet, and that is that none of these officials have been told what is being sprayed or what are the health implications, the risks to the population that gets exposed to it. I'll bet they are being misled, just as there's a conscious effort to try to deceive the public as to the nature of the spraying.
Well, Dr. Herndon, I want to thank you for chatting with me and my listener here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, and giving us the time from your office in San Diego.
Well, thank you. It's important to bring this information to the public. I appreciate the opportunity.
And your website is nuclearplanet.com, nuclearplanet.com. Is that right?
That's correct. And please feel free to visit.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with Marvin Herndon, who's the geophysicist, and he has written a very important paper that advances the story of stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, a major advance in the story. And he is conducting further tests to indicate that the so-called chemtrailing program worldwide, even here over Hamilton County in Chattanooga, is TVA waste product. Let's put it shorthand. Waste product from the burning of coal, and that's called fly ash. Coal fly ash is the content of the spraying program, and that is being done behind the veil of secrecy, behind the wall of national security. And your health, my listener, is suffering even now. This is David Tulis.
After this milestone, another dry and warm day out there for your Tuesday. Pretty nice with partly cloudy skies, highs later on.